Good evening, and thank you for joining us. My name is Andi Fouberg, and I'm the President and CEO of the SDSU Alumni Association, as well as the current chair of the Brookings Area Chamber of Commerce. Tonight is the fifth and final in our series of opportunities hosted by the Brookings Area Chamber of Commerce in conjunction with South Dakota State University to hear from campus and community leaders about Jacks Are Back and the Brookings Resiliency Collaborative, the planning groups working to bring students back to campus and Brookings safely. I'm joined this evening by Brookings School District Activities Director, Soma, and South Dakota State University Director of Athletics, Justin Sell. Thank you both for joining us this evening. We have a list of questions that have been submitted for our guests this evening. If you have a question, please use the question and answer feature at the bottom, and we will answer those as time permits or at a future date. Thank you again for joining us tonight. Randy, we're gonna start with you. High school athletes started working out in the middle of the summer, and many sports have started practice. Soccer has even played a couple of games. Overall, how have the athletes responded to the challenge of competing during this pandemic, and how have things gone?
So far, I think pretty good. We, it hasn't been just athletics. We started marching band and other activities too. So it's a kind of a full go right now for us for activities in our office. But like I said, I think it's going pretty well. Our goal is to kind of our main goals is to keep everybody safe, our students and staff with this, try to keep our school district running as long as possible, and then afford kids the opportunity to participate in activities. And so those are our three major goals here in my department. We put good protocols together and screening procedures in place. We worked with recommendations from the Department of Health, CDC, the South Dakota Activities Association, healthcare providers in town, and then our school district as well as the city. And so I think we've done a pretty good job, and I think our kids have enjoyed it so far. I think they've been waiting to do something. Now it's just whether we can keep it going.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Justin, the big announcement in recent weeks concerning the NCAA athletics at SDSU is the postponement of the Missouri Valley football and fall sports in the Summit League. I know we could spend the entire hour talking about just those two things, but can you talk about the major factors that went into making those decisions?
Yeah, so first, good evening, everyone. It's great to be with you and sharing the screen with Randy. I know we've all been dealing with similar plans, and certainly health and safety of our students and our student athletes and our fans and others has been paramount in all the decisions we have to make. For us, there were multiple factors. Number one, college athletics is a little different than high school or even professional sports in the fact that we have to travel. So when you bring in that component, you've got different states and different places and their requirements and being able to find competition and put that together. Secondly, with all the testing, the tracing, risk mitigation, when you add up all of those different factors, and then we're dealing with the NCAA, we're dealing with the CDC, the Board of Regents, our institution, our different leagues that we're in, and so there's so many different pieces. It's so complex. We worked really hard this summer to try to give our student athletes an opportunity to play this fall, and really in the last week, the thing that probably ended it officially is less than 50% of teams were able to play this fall, which takes the NCAA championships out of the mix. And all our students, athletes prepare to play in the NCAA championships. And so with that, it really made it a pretty easy decision to move things to the spring, and we're hopeful that we can still give our student athletes and fans a chance to support the Jacks maybe in a little different way and during the spring.
Great, thank you. Randy, in terms of practice, how do you handle, especially at the high school level right now, practice, locker room access, training room access? Those are areas that are important to competition and preparation. And so what kind of restrictions or changes needed to be made?
Well, just like anything else, we have guidelines and protocols in place. We kind of limit the number of kids that can be in those places for the weight room as well as the training room. Locker rooms, we've set up schedules or working on schedules to try to accomplish so we don't have all the teams in there at the same time. We tried to spread them out as much as possible. And that'll be similar to when we host teams here too. We got to figure out ways to spread them out and do those kind of social distancing things. Our gyms are kind of large enough for us to practice in right now, and so we haven't had too many restrictions. We had major restrictions in the summer because we wanted to make sure we were doing things right, and so that was a little different. And then our outside sports, it's outside, so it's a little easier for us We can social distance a little bit more. We have bigger facilities to practice in. So that makes it a little bit easier for us. Some of the other restrictions, here at our school district, everybody has to wear masks all the time when we're in the building. I'm fortunate enough to keep my door shut so I can take it off once in a while. But most of the time when we have games and everything like that here at the high school, we'll be wearing masks at all times. So that'll mean our coaches, our kids on the bench when they're not playing, workers, ticket takers, everybody. So it's not just the fans and that's it. So it's going to be everybody. And we'll have some of those same restrictions when we play at different sites because of the city and SDSU's requirements. And so we are trying to follow all those guidelines and keeping everybody safe and hopefully on the right page.
Yeah, it can be a lot to keep track of. Justin, a little bit along those lines, you've had some student athletes return over the summer, planning and preparing for a fall season. Without competition now, obviously classes started today on campus, but are those student athletes doing any athletic related team activities?
Yeah, I think, first we started kind of June, the first week of June and allowing some voluntary activities, mostly in the weight room and being able to do some conditioning. And then as we progressed in the summer, a few more team activities, just not really doing their sport. We're not playing 5-on-5 in basketball or 11-on-11 in football or soccer. And so, we've had to kind of restrict those to be safe and to follow those guidelines. Everyone's wearing masks. We're doing all the social distancing and making sure that we're leaders and setting those examples. And the good news is we were able to practice some of those things this summer. So as our student athletes start with classes, many of our teams are already kind of used to what it takes to stay involved in their activities. We have a lot of spring sports student athletes that are starting this week, so they're going through that process as well. And then ultimately and they're going to continue to practice the way the NCAA allows us. Practice might look different, but really it's about their physical and mental health and the ability for them to get together. And a key designation for us is having required practice opportunities allows the coach be involved. That's the big difference from voluntary. And so we want to make sure we have that chance to bring our coaches and student athletes together. They have something to work towards and allows them to really hopefully start, and for many freshmen to start their experience and get to know their teams and other student athletes and to get them involved and engaged in our campus right off the bat is important to us. So we are doing activities.
So I want to follow up about scholarships for student athletes. I understand you will continue to honor those scholarships. And also, what message have you been sending or telling your student athletes during this kind of, difficult time for all of us, but especially after those recent announcements?
Yeah, I think the best thing you can do when there's obviously many more questions than answers, and I think we're going to be in that for a while, to eliminate any worry about a scholarship, that's going to be taken care of no matter what, to tell them we're going to work on their eligibility, and that shouldn't be a concern. I think all ADs across the country want to make sure that they know we're tuned in, that this is a tough time, and we don't want them to worry about those things. And so each of those pieces that we can add a little bit of stability for them helps a ton. And then I think just recognizing we're in a unique time. We kind of went through this and practiced it in the spring when the spring championships got canceled. It's hard, and it's a different message for seniors than it is for freshmen. We've got a lot of student athletes that are looking to go to medical school and law school and or take jobs. Many of them graduate in December, and so what do they do? And really just trying to make sure they know we care about them, that we're tuned into those issues, and we'll continue to get them answers. And then we got to pull up our bootstraps and be able to get after it and be positive too, because we still need to be leaders. And so we're trying to jump in and support our campus, being involved in Meet State, welcoming families into this place, and really trying to be good teammates. Even though the fall in sports might look very different, we can still be very effective in being great teammates.
I think that's something we can all bring to the table, right? That your attitude and your performance and just being there for one another and supporting one another is really important during this time. Randy, I want to turn toward home football games. I know the questions have been asked as to what restrictions will the Bobcat football home games have. You play your home games in Dana J. Dykehouse Stadium. So what will those restrictions look like for fans and student access?
Yeah, that's a great question. we are good partners with South Dakota State and our city, and we try to use our facilities as much as possible and share it as much as possible. And they are kind enough to let us into that facility. I have meetings starting tomorrow up at SDSU to figure out some of those guidelines. We are currently initially talking with that. We talked about considering a voucher system where we're going to have 4 to 6 per rostered kid on our Activities Association website. So varsity athletes, everybody on the roster would get 6 vouchers, home and away, and then those kids would then distribute those to the 6 people they wanted to, whether it's family or friends, and then they would bring those vouchers to the game, and they would be then allowed into the game with purchasing of a ticket. And then at the same time, we would probably wear masks, social distance, kind of sit in family units. We're talking about sitting in the lower bowl of the stadium, just on the home side, and figuring out that kind of stuff. So it's still kind of up in the air a little bit, but we have about 3 or 4 weeks before we have our first home game, and we'll get that ironed out. I'm excited that we're going to be able to play up there. I know our kids are excited. Our next step after the 4 to 6 vouchers is then to start looking at whether we open it up for our student section to come in, and then fans after that. So it's going to be tough. I know it's hard because we want to be able to get back and start watching some of these events. We're going to webcast as much as possible, all levels. And so people will have access to watch some of those events as well. But we're going to start off safe and start off small and work our way into a better situation if possible. And so that's our initial steps.
It's a lot to sort through. I think that just hearing you talk about that, you can gain an appreciation for just how much there is to kind of work through in these processes. I want to stay with you for a minute and ask you about home contests. We talked about football, but what about volleyball, soccer, cross country? What are the requirements for those events, those activities, and will you have fans for those events?
Yeah, and it's very similar. It depends on the facility and what we're using, and what we share with soccer, we share with the city facility, so they have different requirements and stuff too, so we follow those. But I also have to, we have to talk about what other schools do. And so every school district is different, which makes it tough. We met as athletic directors in the state for the big schools, and we tried to discuss how close can we come to being similar everywhere. But different schools, some schools are wide open. There's no mask, everybody can come in, there's no restrictions. And then there's schools that restrict even more than us. So we're kind of right in the middle right now. A lot of schools are down to that 4 to 6 people per person coming in. That'll be the same for soccer. Right now we have 4. We've had a couple home games already, and we'll have 4. We allow 4 for home and away spectators to come in per rostered player. We wear masks, social distance, some of those same things, and it's gone really well. People have been really respectful. I think they're just happy to get out, to get to some events, and so that has been really good too. But we make all these different restrictions. We don't do some of the normal things we've done in the past, where we do intros, handshakes. All those things have changed. We kind of do a normal PA announcement at the beginning of the game, and it includes the starters, and they're still warming up. We kind of give a little wave, and we keep moving on. And then at the end of the game, it's tough because the teams can't shake hands. It's like they're waving goodbye to each other and head off to their locker rooms or their buses. So it's different. So that's with soccer. Volleyball, we'll have those same restrictions. We'll allow 4 in. People will have to be masked because it's in our school district. We're going to webcast as much as possible, all our levels, 9th grade, 10th grade, JV, and varsity. So people that can't make it, hopefully they can pull it up online and watch for free. So we have those same restrictions. When we come to cross country, we're still working out those details because we have restrictions from the state on how we can incorporate. We have like 10, 12 teams coming. How do we have them in the starting line? How do we have them come through a finish line? We have to sort through a lot of those different things, and we're still working on that. It's almost like we're waiting for somebody else to come up with a great plan for us to follow. And so we beg, borrow, and steal from other places when it starts working for them. We have cheer and dance where we host out at the Swift Health Center. We have different requirements out there. How are we going to get that to work with 20 teams coming in, so many fans, whether we can even do that if it's a live webcast. And so there's a lot of logistics to go on every specific event, not to mention just our own requirements for our school district.
You mentioned that you were waiting for someone else to kind of tell us how to do this. I keep looking for the leadership in a pandemic textbook or some sort of leadership book, and I haven't found it. And I really feel like the people in 1918 really missed out on an opportunity to have a bestseller in 2020. Justin,
Yeah.
I want to stay on the lines of fan engagement. I know you have been communicating to your fall season ticket holders and other loyal supporters. What message have you been sharing with them?
Yeah, I'd probably start actually the other way, the messages that we've received from our supporters, and really going back to last spring. All our worlds got turned upside down. We didn't get championship experiences in men's and women's basketball and wrestling. Just the notes and calls and people reaching out to tell us that they're with us. They're so loyal. They know they're going to help us get through a tough time. Many of them have supported us for 10 and 20 and 30 years, and many more will support us for 10 and 20 and 30 more years. And so, we feel pretty fortunate here. It's not the same when you talk to a lot of my colleagues across the country. I have great confidence that we're going to get through this because we're going to do it together. Here in the next several weeks, we're reaching out and we'll make personal calls. Rather than just sending out a note or an email, we want to make sure that we talk to each person. Obviously, we're excited about some opportunities in the spring, and just trying to keep people up to speed as things kind of get determined for us and we have some information for them. And then trying to work through individually. People are going to be in different situations, and we need to have supreme flexibility to help them out, and we'll work together on that. And we'll find a way to kind of piece this year together. And the thing I'd say is that if we do that, our future is really bright with the student athletes we have here. My biggest disappointment for our student athletes and coaches and fans is we had some of our best teams lined up to play this year. And so hopefully we'll get an opportunity to do that in the spring, and we'll all be able to get together and celebrate. But that's really my message is we've got to make sure we stay together. Those places that do that will survive this pandemic.
This was probably a good opportunity to talk about kind of what that means and the Stay Safe pledge that's been going around Brookings, right? And as our community welcomes SDSU students back and we resume backers activities, now is the best time for us to come together and do our best to provide a safe experience for everyone. And one of the easiest ways for people to do that is to become part of that Stay Safe Brookings pledge. And so you can find that information on both the Chamber and Visit Brookings websites, but certainly there's a lot of information out there. But just doing those things, and they're simple, they're the easiest things to do, but they'll make a huge difference in our ability to have some of these activities. Randy, we focused mainly on high school varsity level, but you're responsible for many sub-varsity levels, including junior varsity and sophomore and freshman and even middle school in some sports. Are those sports continuing to move forward with competition schedules?
Yeah, we're trying to keep everything the same. We felt if we're going to be having high school level stuff, we want it to go all the way down because they feed into our programs, and so we want to keep doing some of that stuff. Now it'll just dictate on how everybody else is doing with their school districts and whether we can control this or not. We'll have the same competition spectator plan protocols depending on the level and facility. It'll come down to communication. I've been telling parents at my parent meetings to please be patient with us, please be flexible, because things will change and it's kind of fluid and we got to keep moving with it. But that it's going to be a season that we're not going to forget about ever because of all the changes and everything we've had to make. I think these kids are going to be pretty prepared for some challenges as the years come in front of them. So I'm excited about that. When we look at middle school sports, we offer a lot. We have a lot of high numbers, which is great, but during this time, it's not as good because we have to deal with now trying to figure out, instead of having our home volleyball matches at middle school, we might have to split the 7th and 8th grade up into 2 different sites and allow, restricted number of fans, maybe 2 per athlete to come in because we have smaller facilities for those. And so stuff like that, having middle school cross country meets, middle school football will be played out here at the high school and try to social distance and do some of those things. We'll just have different restrictions than they've had in the past, but we will keep them very similar to what we're doing at the high school because we want them to understand what's going on at the high school level and what we're doing. So hopefully we can keep it together and we can keep working to try to give those guys those opportunities as well, which is very crucial for their mental and physical well-being.
And you touched on it a little bit in terms of attendance policies for those sports, but anything else that people should know other than just keep a lookout? You'll send information out to parents as things
Yep.
progress and we know more, and we, as you said earlier, right, kind of come through this and try to grow the number of people, hopefully, that as we move through a season.
Right, and we try to communicate as much as possible. We're not perfect, and if they have questions, don't hesitate to call the school district, call our office, ask questions. We can get you pointed in the right direction. Our website has great information as well to get you those positions. We have a school calendar on there that you can click on, and it'll get information from home and away events. And so if you have questions, don't hesitate to call us.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice in general. Just if you have questions during any of this, just ask, because it's not not that there's any sort of effort to keep information. It might just be that we haven't gotten to it yet, or the answer, or that question hasn't come yet too. Right. Justin, we talked about the fall sports and what is going on there. Has there been any discussion yet about winter men's and women's basketball, wrestling, indoor track, swimming, diving? The list goes on of winter sports, right? Has there been any discussion about how those sports will continue?
I think the first challenge is making sure we settle the fall sports and find a way to give them a championship in the spring. I think as we look at the winter sports kind of coming up next, the next couple of weeks will really give us a good sense of, will they be able to start in and around the same time they normally do, or is that going to be pushed back a little bit later? I mean, the one good thing about this process is we learn more every day. We learned a lot more from March to June, and now we've learned a lot more here in August. So from testing capabilities and our abilities to meet the NCAA guidelines that we have to return to play, I think a lot of those are coming into play. So it's premature to, write off anything, frankly. We know the fall is a challenge, but I think as we get more information, we'll be able to put those things in place. You can imagine the challenge in the spring is going to be with all those championships and trying to play fall sports. There's a real crunch on facilities. There's going to be a real crunch in regards to travel. There's only so many planes and buses and places to stay, and there's 400,000 plus student athletes in the NCAA system. And so to condense that down into a 5-month period, if you start, let's say, January 1, there are some challenges that we're going to have to address, and they're going to take a little bit of time. And I loved Randy's comment on a little patience, a little grace. And you said none of us have a bullet point on our resumes with pandemic experience. But I would remark on that. I think for us in athletics, the one bonus, and I told our staff this and our student athletes, athletics teaches you all those things. We deal with diversity all the time. We're competitive. We have to be teammates. There's so many lessons of what we do. We have the skill set. We just have to apply it in a much bigger and different way. But if we do that, we can get through these things successfully.
I met with the Hobo Day committee on Monday, and I told them that 2020 is the year of resiliency, right? That is the hashtag resiliency for 2020. Randy, in the event there is an increase in positive COVID cases at the high school level, is it up to the school district to determine the status of where teams will keep competing, or will the South Dakota High School Activities Association be involved? Will they determine any chances of high school championships? How does that process work?
Great question. I think it's going to come down to individual schools making those decisions, but I think with the CDC, the Department of Health, the South Dakota Activities Association is going to play an integral part of that, because we're going to rely on their expertise to help us along with that. Same with local healthcare providers. I know that they have some things set in place for whether it's a canceled game, whether it's a forfeit. If we were to cancel our game, and because we didn't want to travel to another town because we felt that they had an outbreak or something, unless we have that pre-approved, then that would be a forfeit on our end. And so we just need to work closely with the South Dakota Activities Association when it comes to game cancellations and postponements. But I think in the end, people want to be safe. People want to be taking care of their communities. And so I think we're really going to work hard to work with each other. And I think that's important when it comes down to it in the end, that we are working together. The whole state's working together hard to make sure we can hold on as long as possible, to make sure we're doing the right things. And so I appreciate my colleagues and how they've been working hard as well.
Yeah, safety being the most important piece of all of this. Justin, back to you on a different topic. Where's the NCAA at in looking at student athlete eligibility? Will students be given another year of eligibility in the event a season is not played? So for instance, if football does not end up happening in the spring, right? Will the NCAA look to increase scholarship limits for teams, as they will help to need to keep recruiting freshmen, right? So you'll just have more folks on the team possibly. So how does some of that work? Or maybe the NCAA isn't there yet either.
We had discussions here even today. I had a Division I council meeting, and that was a big part of the discussion, and mainly because we want to give students answers. You know, that's really important. And so you're balancing how do you work out all the details, yet trying to provide some flexibility for them. And with an NCAA rule book, we're so about rules. And this is going to take a lot of trust. You know, we've got to make sure that we're doing the right things for them. And so we got a good precedent set in the spring with spring student athletes that got their extended eligibility, and we worked on those things. I think you'll see here in the next several days, there's been a real push from us ADs in particular to really say, hey, if we can get some games in and some competition this year, let's not worry about the format. If it's conference only and some league championships or some NCAA championships, you know, we may not be able to do as much out of conference. What happens if they play a little bit and then they all have to quarantine for 2 weeks and they lose some weeks and then come back in? And so I think we want to take that off the table. And I think you'll see this year be maybe more of a mulligan, you know, if we can get some things in, and then everyone's going to get an opportunity for the fall sports for sure. Everyone's going to get that opportunity to come back. And then we'll have to work through those as a school. That's when the hard work happens, because it's roster management, right? And so you're allowed to carry X amount more. It's a different deal when you have spring sports, when a track student athlete's on 15% of a scholarship and a volleyball student athlete's a full ride based on the NCAA. And so there's some financial implications to some of those decisions that we have to work through. And then in fairness, and to the whole subset that Randy works with all the time, recruiting has been stalled. And so you've got now these backlogs of much bigger rosters, and trying to find ways to still help students that are seniors and even juniors in high school navigate how they can get to a college campus and compete. And so, and then each sport has a different challenge too. So that's our big work probably this fall, but student athletes should know, I think there's going to be tremendous kindness to their situations and allow them that flexibility to finish their experience how they'd like to.
Yeah, again, back to grace, right? Have some grace in this situation. Randy, with our neighboring states, particularly Minnesota, moving fall sports to the spring, has there been some high school students inquiring about transferring to Brookings and being able to compete? What is the district's approach to that situation? Because we're a border county, right?
Correct. We've had probably a good share of people calling and asking questions about it. You know, we are student athletes first, students first. And so this is a school district. Our profession is to get them a great education, which we provide here. And so I tell them that that's the most important thing that they're going to get. It's a life-changing thing if they want to move to Brookings, because there's some serious rules that have to apply from the state that you have to follow in order to do that. So I think after talking to most of them, it's a lot for them to kind of walk through to get that. I'm willing to help them in any way possible. We want people to come to Brookings. I love Brookings. I want people to know that Brookings is fantastic. And I think any chance we can get people to come to our town and come to our school district and enjoy Brookings, it's great. And I know our school district is the same way. We just have to follow the rules that are put in front of us from the state and on their eligibility and whether it's a bona fide move, or if it's a hardship or whatever it is, we just got to follow those rules, and we're accepting. And I definitely walk through that whole cycle with people and weigh their options and give them the best scenarios I can for them, and just be honest with them. So I don't want to turn people away, but I also want them to understand what the process is.
Yeah, good. Well, we're coming up on kind of the end of our time. So Justin, I'll turn it over to you if you've got anything else you'd like to add before we close out this session.
Yeah, I would love to. I think times like these make me really appreciate living in a community like Brookings, working at a place like SDSU. And when you look across the board, and it's hard to see leadership in many areas of our society today, and yet when you look at our school district, when you look at our community, and then certainly for us here on campus, we're so fortunate to have President Dunn and Provost Hedge and Vice President Willis and Vice President Green. I mean, you can go down the list, yourself and Steve on the outreach part of keeping people connected and making sure we stay true to our core values. And I've said many times before, simplicity in times like these and understanding what your values are and working towards those are critical for us to have success. And when you're people-centered and when you care about others, and if we care about each other's health and safety, if we care about thinking about ourselves as part of something bigger than ourselves, and then we do this thing together, we're going to end up in a good spot. I know it's hard to see sometimes, and we're in the middle of it, but I assure you we will get there. And the last thing for Jackrabbit fans out there, I noted we have a terrific program right now with some phenomenal student athletes. We are young. This time will allow us to continue to prepare them in a way that the next 2 and 3 and 4 years, I think we could do some pretty interesting things here. So if we hold this together, look out for the Jackrabbits as we move down the road.
Excellent. Thank you. Same question to you, Randy. Anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I just want to thank our community, SDSU, our superintendent, Dr. Willard, our administration, our staff, and our students. We really, our fans, the ones we'll be able to allow in right now. We've been working so hard this whole summer just to get to this point where we're allowing people in to get to this stage. It's been a long summer, but I feel very fortunate, right now that we're able to get things up and running. And then I have the support staff, and just working with the people I work with in our community. It's just outstanding. And I feel very fortunate to be in the place that I am right now. Our hope is that we keep everybody safe. We continue our school year as long as possible, and then we, allow student athletes those capabilities of participating. We appreciate everything we're given. And so, like I said at the beginning, grace, flexibility, patience, that stuff I have to work on myself, because I get frustrated pretty easily when we start coming down with some new rules and different things like that. And I have to take a step back and think about what are we here for? And it's here to serve our kids and stay positive. So I wish everyone the best, and appreciate Justin's comments as well, and appreciate working with him.
Well, I appreciate both of your time. As a fan of both athletics and, you mentioned marching band, Randy, all of those kinds of things. For those of us who love those activities, we hope that there's the way to find a way back for us too, because we want to support those, not just student athletes, but so many of the students in our community who really work hard to be their best. But as we close out the hour, I want to thank you both for joining us. Big thank you also to SDSU Director of Marketing and Communications, Mike Lockram, and President and CEO of the Brookings Area Chamber of Commerce, Kelsey for their assistance in this event. For more information on Jacks Are Back, please visit the website sdstate.edu/Jacks Are Back. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Have a good night, everybody.